Welcome to Gift of Life, the Organ Transplant Podcast. These are the stories of those who have received, given, and who are waiting for the gift of life, organ transplantation. Now here's your host and heart and kidney recipient, BJ Odom.
Welcome to the Gift of Life, the Organ Transplant Podcast, where we explore the extraordinary world of organ transplantation. I'm your host, BJ Odom. Each week we share inspiring stories and introduce you to remarkable individuals sharing their very own transplant stories. Be sure to support the podcast by leaving that 5-star review and subscribing on your preferred podcast platform. Have a transplant story yourself you'd like to share? Just send us an email, giftoflifepodcast@gmail.com. Again, that's giftoflifepodcast@gmail.com. And don't forget to connect with us on Facebook, Gift of Life, the Organ Transplant Podcast. And our new website, it is called giftoflifepodcast.com. Welcome to episode 58, where this week we talk to Darci Gibson, founder and president of Off the List. She has firsthand personal experience with the kidney transplant process, helping individuals on the kidney transplant list and their families with the tools needed to find a living donor. You can always get more information on Off the List at getoffTheList.org. We'll check in with Darci coming up next. It is so great having Darci on the podcast today, and let's kick things off by Darci telling us a little bit about yourself, if you would.
So I'm so thrilled to be here today. So I am Darci Gibson, and I am the founder and president of Off the List, which is a nonprofit organization that equips and empowers individuals on the kidney transplant list and their families with the tools needed to find living donors. And my story really started 9 years ago when my dad needed a kidney, and I helped share his story, and we found a couple living donors through that process, and I wanted to be able to turn that around and help other people.
Sounds pretty awesome. Now, I've talked to quite a few people, not a lot, but I've talked to a few people already on this podcast that have actually used you and were quite successful. And a couple of people I know right now are using you and still looking for those kidneys. So we wish them the very best of luck. But What are some of the things that you help them with?
Yes. Well, so, a couple things are, it's not easy for people to often share their story, talk about the fact that they're in need and that they need a kidney. And none of us are really wired to want to talk about ourselves that way. And so, one thing we do from the very beginning is really talk about the importance of them sharing their story. We have to get the word out. That's the only way we're going to find more living donors, is for them to be able to share that information. So we help them through that process of, it's okay to share your story, and it's normal to feel this way, but here are the reasons why we should. And then once we work through that process, then most of the people that we work with go through our Together Toward Transplant program. And that is a step-by-step personalized program that we take each of our families through to help them really do some foundational work for this campaign, really help them write their story, identify their team, do some other steps within that. And then the second part of our program is walking them through all the different strategies that they can use to get their story out there. And what we do is we take it a step further, and we help people set up their social media pages. We help people run their social media pages by doing the posting. If we're going to send out a letter, we're going to write the letter for them and give it to them. So we're just trying to make it really easy, take away all the obstacles, and give people exactly what they need to effectively get their story out there through a comprehensive marketing plan.
Now, I remember when I was looking for a kidney back in 2015, I can kind of relate, because you're wanting that kidney so bad, but then there's another part of you goes, I can't ask all my friends and neighbors if they'll give me a kidney. And how do you approach that, and how do you talk them through that?
Yes, yes. And that is so normal. We hear that a lot. And our approach is that we are here to share. We are here to share, raise awareness, educate people, and create conversation. I don't believe it's effective to walk up to people and say, "Hey, I need a kidney. Can you give me yours?" That doesn't work. People, right? I mean, people, get a little bit defensive, or this feels uncomfortable. And so really, what we have to do is really just share the information. Share, what does it feel like to be waiting for a kidney? What is it like to be on dialysis? What things are you not able to do because of the kidney failure? What are the dreams? What are the things that you want to do with a new kidney? And when we can communicate that out and just share that, it's not our job to bribe or coerce or compel anybody to be a donor. That's a very personal decision. So we're just here to work with the families to get that information out, to help educate people, and then let people take in that information and make a decision for themselves. And I think when we look at it through that perspective, I really think it helps people get more comfortable with the process of sharing versus walking around and saying, "Help, help, help." Right? It's just a little different way to look at it. And the response that we have gotten is that people just they're comfortable with that approach of doing it that way. And people are comfortable just receiving that information. So it's not an easy thing to do. I mean, it really isn't. But our favorite words to say around here off the list are share, share, share. It doesn't matter what that person does with the information. It's just our job to share it.
Now, if I could ask you, what were you doing before your father, found out that he was going to need a kidney, and you pretty much started this program? So what did you transfer from, may I ask?
Yes, no, that's a great question. I've actually been busy raising 4 children for many, many years, but within that time that I was also raising them for about 10 years, I was in direct sales network marketing and, really building relationships with people. I had a service, I had a product that, I was sharing with people. And at the time, I had no idea all the things that I was learning that were going to help prepare me for what I do now. I mean, I could have never dreamed that would be the case, but it was really, for me, it was just a complete, God was in the details on that for me and was preparing me for what I do now, because all of the things that I learned, all those skills I'm using every day and helped me build the program that we have now. So it's really cool to think back and see how what I thought was just kind of something that I was doing really just to get out of the house a little bit, have fun, because I was, a full-time mom, has now led to this kind of impactful work.
How many people would you say, you found kidneys for now? And how long have you been doing this actually? I mean, I know you started kind of with your father, but did it start right after that, or while you were working with your father, or did it take a couple of years to really say, this can be something where I can help people out?
Right. No, it was the latter. It was definitely, it was something that I knew right away. I knew I wanted to do something in organ donation, right? I wanted to do something with transplant, but I didn't know what that was. And I kind of kept thinking, am I going to do my own thing? And I think I kept telling myself, no, you're not going to do your own thing. So I volunteered with, local organizations and got some more exposure. And really my heart just kept coming back to, I see this gap that exists. I see people that are going through this testing process. They're getting listed for, a kidney, and they're often told finding a living donor is your best outcome. You can likely get off of the transplant list a lot more quickly. Maybe you can even avoid dialysis. And the outcomes from a kidney that come from a living donor are typically double the amount of time, than a kidney that comes from a deceased donor. And what I saw, BJ, was just this gap of there really not being any help once somebody was told they needed a kidney transplant and to go look for a living donor. And really no one was filling that gap. And so I did, for a couple of years, think a lot about doing this, but it really was not until after I had talked to some more people that were in need that I really thought, you know what am I waiting for? Let's just do this. So we've been fully operational for about 3 years. Right now we're currently working with about 80 individuals. They all come with a team of about 2 to 3 people. So, at any given time, really, we're supporting about 2 to 250 people when you kind of include their teams. And, the national average for kidney transplants that come from a living donor is 23%. And of the families that go through our program, 55% are finding living donors. So we're more than doubling the national average by just giving people those tools and giving them the resources and that support as they're going through this process of sharing their story.
Now, how many?
So yeah.
Oh, no, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I was just going to say it's been really kind of just an interesting process of getting to where we are right now, right? And just kind of taking that leap to say, okay, we'll do our own thing and figure this out.
Now, how many people have you found kidneys for that all of a sudden say, you know what, can I get involved? Can I help? Because I know, being in the transplant world, you hear about it, you somewhat kind of think about it. Sometimes, you'll sign the little thing on your driver's license. Yeah, I'll be a donor when I die. But really,
right.
After people either have someone in their family, probably like, a lot of, medical things happen. But when you're close to the situation, that's when you seem to want to get involved. And how many people have you helped then all of a sudden said, let me help you and others?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I would say probably 80 to 85% of our families are actively involved now post-transplant, right? They're helping in, we have a kidney crew. That's our volunteer program. And we have leaders of each of those crews. And those are, people that we've helped. Our Transplant Pals program, that's a one-to-one mentorship with somebody who's been through the process and is now transplanted, that they are partnered up with somebody who is currently waiting. Those people are now pals, right? Because they just, in their hearts now, they want to be able to give back to the people that are going through the process. And I think that's been the most beautiful thing for me to see, is how that has just happened in many ways organically, where, again, from receiving the gift of life, that it changes a lot of your perspective. It changes, where am I spending my time and where are my priorities? And people really want to give back. And so we love it. We love it because we never want them to leave our, off the list community and our off the list family. So it just allows them to, kind of seamlessly, with that little recovery time there, right? We don't want them coming back too soon to help, because we want them to recover after their surgery and their transplant and get back on their feet. But we stay in touch with them through that period. And then when they're ready, then they jump back in and help on the other side now. So it's really neat to see.
And it's got to be a big undertaking, with you having all these volunteers and everything else. How are ways people can help? And obviously, you're interested in all the bodies you can get to help. What's the process there?
Right. Well, so, if somebody's interested in helping, we are actually in the process of revamping our website, and we are actually going to have a portal on there that will be for people that want to help. Right now, people can go to our website, which is getoffTheList.org, and there is just a contact us, and they can hit that button and just say, hey, I'm post-transplant. I had a kidney transplant and I'd like to help. And somebody will reach out from Off the List and chat, hear your story, and then see where you might like to get plugged in. So there are lots of opportunities for sure to do that. And even for people, that are not local to us in the Cincinnati area, there are lots of ways that people can help out, from different parts of the country. So that's how I would encourage people right now if they're interested in learning how to get involved.
And if there's someone out there looking for a kidney right now and is listening and going, wow, it sounds like an awesome plan and an awesome way. Maybe I can learn some new techniques and, find some new ways maybe to find that living donor. And how do they, probably the same way they reach out to you, or how does that work?
Yes, the same way. So they can go right through our website. And again, there's a spot there where they can just send a quick message saying, I'm looking for a living donor. I'm on the kidney transplant list and I need help. And then what we will do is reach out, and we love to set up a short, just kind of introductory call. I love to hear people's stories, and then we just share how we help, and then, talk about next steps from there. So that's the most direct way. People can also, we do have, social media on Facebook and Instagram. People can always message us through there as well, and we will get back in touch with them. And again, like to set up a phone call, because we like to get to know people and see, how we can best support them through their journey.
Now, I know doing this podcast, I've talked to a number of people, and there are some, every story is touching, but there are some of those stories that touch you more than others. What are some of maybe your highlight stories you might want to share with us today?
Right. Yeah, well, that's a great question. And I think every story is amazing. Every story is unique of, people that inspire me because they fight and they don't give up. I mean, that is something I see across the board with every single person that calls us. Just this fighting and determined spirit to do everything that they can do. I will say, one thing that, a couple of stories that kind of stick out in my mind, we have helped support people, that have children that are 18 months to 2 years old that need kidneys, all the way up to people that are in their mid 70s. And I think there are different emotions that come with every one of those stories that come across. But one of my favorite ones is a gentleman that came to us almost 2 years ago. And, we were fairly new. He had been on dialysis already for almost 3 years. And he was connected with us through his transplant center. And the first time I talked to him, he said, well, I could never share my story to ask or have anybody consider being a living donor for me, because I don't want to put anybody's health at risk. I just won't do that. And I said, I hear what you're saying. And I said, let's talk a little bit. Are you willing to just talk a little bit about what we know about living kidney donation? And he was open to that. And so we spent a couple of calls just talking about, here is, what the medical community knows about living donation, that it's safe, that here are the recovery times. You can have children afterwards. There's no special diet, just some of these things. And I'll never forget the day that he said, okay, he said, you know what? I feel like I have more information now about doing this and sharing. And he said, I have to hook up to my dialysis machine every night at 6:00. And run all night on the dialysis machine. So we're talking, 60 plus hours a week. And even though it was overnight, he didn't sleep well because, the machines beep or a wire gets kinked or something happens. It's not a restful night of sleep. And he said, and I don't get to do anything with my family, my grandchildren, that happens in the evening because at 6:00, I have to be hooked up to my dialysis. And he said, I'm tired of doing that. And he said, so you know what? I'll do whatever you ask me to do. And so we started working through the program. And I reminded him and his team when we were working through that, again, our job is to share. And a lot of times we're not going to even know if somebody has called the transplant center, and stepped up. That information is confidential and HIPAA protected. So, as somebody who's looking for a kidney, you often don't even know if you're getting a response. But what we know is that if people are consistently sharing using a lot of the strategies that we recommend, that things are happening. So he was sharing, we were going through things and we were having one of our kind of regular calls. And I started out the call, by saying, so has anybody indicated to you that they're testing? Has anybody indicated that they're calling the transplant center? And he said, no, I haven't heard anything. And I said, well, that's okay. Remember, lots of times we don't know anything. 5 days later, the phone rang and it was him. And he said, I just got a call. I have an approved living donor. And that was 5 months after he started sharing. And I think the thing, of course, we all cried. And I think, a couple of things that came from that were, one, he was willing and had an open heart and mind to learn more and be comfortable with some of the information about living donation. Then when he was comfortable with that, he was willing, he trusted us to say, here's exactly what we're going to do. And the third thing that was just so amazing was here we were on a phone call saying, we don't know of anybody, right, who is potentially testing. And 5 days later, somebody had been approved. So somebody had been testing, right, for probably 4, 5, 6 weeks. But again, because we're not privy to that information on the other side, we're often in the dark a little bit. And so it just reminded me of the persistence, the consistency that we have to use. And it just reminded me of how sometimes when we think there are no other options, or we think there's nothing I can do but wait, there aren't. There are options, and we can take control and we can share and get information out there, because he is living testimony to coming up on 2 years now with his transplant. He's living his life, and he is not on dialysis, and he is going to events that are in the evening with his family now. And it just truly, still, when I think about his story, his is one of many, but it really reminds me of how important the work is that we're doing.
Yeah, sometimes dialysis can be pretty much like a full-time position. It's like it takes so much out of you, because you're just always, doing it. Even if you're going to a center 3 days a week, they got to hook you up. You got to sit there, and it takes a big chunk out of your life.
Right. And what a lot of people say to me is, if I go to dialysis on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, on Monday I'm there for 4 to 5 hours, right, while I'm getting set up, doing the treatment. I get home and I'm exhausted, so then I nap. Then Tuesday, the next day, I'm kind of in recovery mode. I start feeling a little bit better, but guess what happens on Wednesday morning?
You're back.
I have to go through all the, right?
Yeah.
So it's just this vicious cycle, right? And I think what a lot of people don't understand is that dialysis is not easy. And, whether or not someone's doing dialysis at home or they're doing it in center, it's hard. There are side effects. There are a lot of dietary restrictions. A lot of times people can't even take a bath. They can't swim in a pool. There're just a lot of things that we take for granted that we can do that people on dialysis can't do. And it's not an option. They have to do it in order to stay alive. And so, the more that we can help people either avoid having to go on dialysis, like finding that donor before that, or if they're on dialysis, again, getting them off as soon as possible, is better for their long-term health outcomes as well. But yeah, dialysis is hard. It really is.
Well, Darci, you're doing an amazing job. And I want to say thank you from, all of us, the transplant community, because it's a needed thing, and you found the niche, and it's probably, you've been so helpful to so many. So I know, I'll just say for them, thank you.
Oh, well, thank you. I often say, and I appreciate that, I say, like, it's the biggest privilege for me to be able to do this work. It really, like I said a little earlier, I am every single day inspired by what people, including yourself, what you go through in the waiting and in the uncertainty and in the ups and the downs of transplant. No matter whether or not it's a kidney or another organ, it's tough. It's tough. And To be able to play a small part of that and to be able to walk beside a family and a team going through this, I mean, there's just really is no greater joy for me. And then obviously to see people then on the other side be able to do all the things that they wanted to do. In fact, I'll share with you real quickly. We had a gentleman he has 2 young children. He had his transplant in March, and I was just talking to him the other day, and I was looking up his story that we wrote almost a year ago to the date. And I shared it with him again, and I was like, look, this is the story that we wrote when you were in need. And here you are now a year later with your new kidney. And we were already checking off some of the things that were like with a new kidney, I'll be able to do this. One of them was just being able to read a story to his 5-year-old and put him to bed. And he couldn't do that before that because he was on dialysis and had to be hooked up to the machine. Mm-hmm. And here he is now, just 3 months out, right? And I mean, I can't even imagine in another 6 months or another year what he's going to be doing when he's fully back, to 100%. But I mean, just again, little things like that many times I know I have certainly taken for granted, being able to read a story to my children when they were little and put them to bed. He couldn't do, but here he is now and he's doing that. And so there just is no greater joy to be able to see those things, him be able to do those things, right?
And the people that truly amaze me, which I have had on this podcast also, are those that just wake up in the middle of the night. I had a lady on, about half a year ago or something like that. And she woke up in the middle of the night and she turned to her husband, woke him up out of his sleep and said, honey, I want to donate a kidney. I don't know who I want to donate it to or anything about him, but I want to donate a kidney. And now, it's just amazing how those stories come to you.
I mean, it really is. It really is. And, listening to living donors share their stories is incredible. And we had the opportunity to, during Donate Life Month, we had a special event where we had 3 living donors. One is actually a nephrologist who donated her kidney last summer. So a kidney doctor who donated her kidney is incredible. We had a dietitian who's been working in a dialysis clinic for almost 20 years, donated a kidney earlier this year. And then another young mom who donated her kidney a few years ago. And it's so incredible to hear them talk about their journey and what led them to that place, right? And for one of them, she donated a kidney because she heard the other one share 6 months ago, her story, and was so inspired by her story that it then led her to say, why couldn't I donate a kidney? Right. And so I encourage, sometimes it's hard for living donors to share that. They don't want people to say, they don't want to share. They're not doing it for the accolades. They're not sharing because they want everybody to say you're a hero. They are heroes, and they give the greatest gift there is to give. But sometimes they hold back a little bit because they don't want people to perceive them as, seeking accolades. What I'm really trying to encourage, the living donors that we come in contact with are, please share just your heart and share what you went through, because other people need to hear you share that. Other people need to hear how a real person, felt led and what the process was that they went through. And that's incredibly, again, just like we want people to share that they need kidneys, we need more living donors, more living kidney donors to share their stories. And so platforms like yours and other ways are great ways for people to, again, really understand what it's like versus reading something or even just doing a search on the internet, right?
Yeah.
So I love it when living donors share, and we're trying to create more platforms for that to, again, help get that education out there, raise awareness, and help people learn more.
Well, like I said, it's an amazing thing what you're doing, and I do appreciate it. Today we're talking to Darci Gibson, and the name of the organization, off the list. And it'd be nice to get everyone off the list. And we sure are trying. Wouldn't that be it? Wouldn't that be a great thing?
Wouldn't that be amazing? Oh my goodness. I know. I always say one person at a time, right? One person at a time. For sure. But yes, definitely we need more living donors, right? There are lots of people walking around with 2 kidneys and you only need one to live a full, healthy life. So we have to, again, continue to get that education out through people's stories.
Now, is there anything that I may have missed asking you or anything that you would really like to get out there before we let you go today?
I mean, I don't think so. I think it was great. I think it was really thorough and gave an opportunity to talk about a lot of different angles of this. So no, I feel really good about what was shared. I don't feel like anything was missing.
Cool. Well, if you would, one more time, why don't you give that website and tell folks how they could get a hold of you, whether they are thinking about donating a kidney, or maybe they're one of those people that are just looking and hoping for a living donor, and maybe you can help them out.
Yes, absolutely. So you can definitely, if you are in need, you're waiting for a kidney transplant, if you have even considered or thought like, hey, maybe I could donate a kidney. If you're looking for a way to volunteer, get involved and help, people that are looking for kidneys, please reach out via our website, which is getoffTheList.org. And just send something through our Contact Us button and we will reach out, and we would love to connect with you.
Thank you, Darci Gibson, for sharing this valuable information with her group Off the List, where you can contact them at any time by going to getoffTheList.org. Be sure to join us again next week for a new heartfelt episode of Gift of Life, the Organ Transplant Podcast. And if you have a transplant story you'd like to share, just email us, giftoflifepodcast@gmail.com. And of course, if you just want to make a comment about the podcast, feel free to reach out to us. Again, the email address is giftoflifepodcast@gmail.com. Follow us on Facebook, and don't forget to like and share this episode with family and friends. And we would appreciate that 5-star review on your favorite podcast platform. Another podcast you might enjoy is myself and my former radio partner for years, Bill Stevens, called BJ and Bill the Podcast, all on the Podcast Playground Network, home for some of the best podcasters. And of course, we want to thank them for making this podcast possible. Until next time, I'm BJ Odom. Thank you so much for being a part of our journey and reminding us all to appreciate each and every day and to treasure the extraordinary gift of life.
He was running on empty, heart fading fast. Doctor said, man, you ain't gonna last. But a stranger's kindness, a gift so true, turned the night sky into something new. He got a second chance, he got a brand new spark. Like a freight train rolling back from the dark. Gift of life, let the story be told. One heart beats, another takes hold. Give a little, save a soul. Ain't no greater rock and roll. 15 years later, the road got rough. The fight ain't over when the climb is tough. Needed a kidney, the race was on. Another hero stepped up, kept him strong. Every breath he takes is a tale of hope. One life saved, another can cope. Gift of life, let the story be told. One heart beats, another takes hold. Give a little, save a soul. Ain't no greater rock and roll. Doctor's hands, a donor's grace, running on down to a brand new place. Second chances don't come twice, but when they do, man, they feel so nice. So let's spread the word, let the people know. One yesterday lets a miracle grow. You don't need wings just to save a man, just a little love, a helping hand. Gift of life. life. Let the story be told. One heart beats, another takes hold. Give a little, save a soul. Ain't no greater rock and roll. BJ still rockin', still standing tall. Thanks to the ones who gave it all. Gift of life, hear the sound. Pass it on, pass it down. The Gift of Life podcast hosted by BJ Odom. Listen now.